Hello everyone, hello ladies and gents, welcome back to Dennis Saliba, Occult and Fortiana, and in today's video we're just going to be touching some baseline 101 stuff, some fundamentals, and I want to be talking about the etymology of the word occult and epistemology and ontology. So the following comes from the Dictionary of Etymology, and the word and history of the word occult itself. This is an adjective, and in the 1530s, this was more aligned with the meaning secret or not divulged, and it comes from the French occult. I don't speak French, so pardon my bad pronunciation. And directly from Latin occultus, which means hidden, concealed, secret, or the past participle of occulere, to cover, conceal, or cover over. So the word itself takes from the prefix ob or over, a verb from celer, to hide, and from pie, the root kel, so to hide, to cover, to conceal, meaning that not apprehended by the mind, beyond the range of understanding, is from the 1540s, the association with the supernatural sciences, such as magic, alchemy, astrology, divination, I'll include divination under that, necromancy, dates back from the 1630s, a verb occult, to keep secret, conceal, or Latin occultare, is obsolete now. So early 15th century, occultation, this is the noun, to disguise or concealment of identity, from Latin occultatio, occultationem, or the nominative occultatio, root or noun of action or past participle stem, occultare, to hide, conceal, occulere. Occultism is a noun. This is the doctrine or the principles or practices of the occult sciences, more derived from the 1870s and the foundations of the Western branch of Hermeticism and Western occult scene, the Western occult scene. Occultism, I should add, is to be distinguished from primitive magic, which is described by anthropologists as it is pre-scientific, pre-philosophical, and perhaps pre-religious, whereas occultism is a pseudoscience or system of pseudosciences, often supported by an irrationalist philosophy and always exploiting the disintegrated debris of pre-existing religions, the gods or the Greeks or the irrational in 1531. So when you use your terminology, the purpose of this is to, when you use your terminology, you should be as precise, as contextual as possible, and not to be misled by popular understandings and misunderstandings and various anachronisms. So basically viewing things from today's lens, viewing things from the past with today's lens and today's biases and today's worldview, as opposed to the worldview of what was back then. That's basically a form of an anachronism. In the Ravine, posted by Up, T-H-E-R, Upthera 44, posted on the 18th of November 2016. The difference between ontology, epistemology, cosmology, and metaphysics. Now we're getting into baseline philosophy. These philosophical concepts are often used incorrectly or interchangeably when discussing the problem of the knowability of our reality. Do we really know what we know? How do we know? Are we asking the right questions? Because ultimately, the quality of our questions leads to the quality of our answers. And sometimes the quality of those answers are embedded within deeper questions or the limitus tests of our knowledge itself. And that's how we start to derive meaning from the mysteries and deeper understandings from the mysteries, the litmus test of what we know and what we don't know, as opposed to the deeper mysteries of what we can and cannot know beyond, even beyond that, many, many layers. I admit that I've often used these terms somewhat loosely, but without fully understanding the differences between them. After some reading and reflection, I wanted to outline my understanding of how they overlap and the differences between them. For me, thinking about the etymology of the words is, where am I? Thinking about the etymology of the words themselves is helpful. Epistemology, from episteme or knowledge, means the study of knowledge. How is the topic in question being studied? Hello, Blacks 2X, how you doing? And Forrest Chad, sup boyo? Forrest Chad, how you doing, man? I think you're new to the channel. Welcome to the channel, guys. I think you're new. I haven't seen Forrest Chad before. Ontology, from onto, meaning being, not onto. This is onto, means the study of being. The cosmology, from cosmos, the Greek cosmos, order of the world, as opposed to order of the heavens as well. The study of the world, especially its origin and development. Metaphysics, from the Greek derived word meta, or beyond, is a branch of philosophy that deals with abstract concepts beyond natural physics, 3D physics, and first principles, seeking to explain the nature of being or reality, one's ontology, and the original and origin, I should say, and structure of the world, the cosmology of the world. Epistemology has been compared to intellectual history in that it is concerned with what humans know as a collective, but that collective itself has different ontologies, because let's say, for example, you have Greeks, and then you have Persians, and then you have the Romans, and then you have the modern Western system and the modern Western civilization, which is kind of the birth child of Rome anyway. So different ontologies have different cosmologies as well, bearing that in mind. Not much, just listening to music. Always welcome to X. Always welcome. The origin and structure of the world. Epistemology has been compared to intellectual. I already read that. So, for example, pre-Copernicus, the world's perspective, the perspective of the world is flat. That's a form of cosmology there. In contrast to epistemology, metaphysics is concerned with how humans know what they know. Metaphysics, then, is always the question behind the question. What higher plane forces drives what we actually know? Metaphysics includes a self-conscious term that epistemology avoids, examining powers and processes of the intellect. Ontology, which can easily be confused with metaphysics, is concerned primarily with positing entities and establishing what exists. That's a very great rundown. It's a very brief but a very succinct rundown of what this is. And it's very easy to get very overly academic and overly confused with these terms and terminologies, as opposed to understanding the crux of it. I think I might be getting sick or getting allergies. Isn't it winter time in the US, or like the border of winter time there? Because it's almost summertime here. Now, this article I've wanted to cover for a couple of weeks, because this is very baseline 101 stuff. I have to cover this stuff before I cover other topics and other things. A Guide to Ontology, Epistemology, and Philosophical Perspectives, or Interdisciplinary Researchers. Published on the 2nd of May 2017 by Katie Moon and Deborah Blackman. Just want to see if there's a little biography of theirs first. That's a comment. It's another comment. I didn't see a biography. Okay. But it's always helpful to have those little biographies. So how can understanding philosophy improve our research? Well, research is underpinned by philosophy. Research and philosophy are not mutually exclusive. How can an understanding of what frames our research influence our choices? The researcher's personal thoughts and beliefs shape research design, outcomes, and interpretation? Yes, in essence, yes. These questions are all important for all research. I'm going to go beyond social science research. All research, ultimately. Here we present a philosophical guide for scientists to assist in the production of effective social science, adapted from Moon and Blackman, cited in 2014. Understanding philosophy is important because social science research can only be meaningfully interpreted when there is clarity about the decisions that were taken into effect that affect the research outcomes. Some of these decisions are based not always knowingly, sometimes subconsciously, sometimes within our inner deeper cosmology, epistemology, and our inner deeper ontology too, on some key philosophical principles, as outlined in the figure below. Philosophy outlines the general principles of theoretical thinking, a method of cognition, perspective, and self-awareness, all of which are used to obtain knowledge of reality and to design, conduct, analyze, and interpret research and its outcomes. The figure below shows three main branches of philosophy that are important in the sciences and serves to illustrate the differences between them. I'm going to have to zoom in, I think, because this is very small writing. Yeah, it's winter time. Damn. Ontology, what exists in the human world and what we can acquire knowledge about. Realism, one reality exists, and relativism, multiple realities exist. I guess I'm more on the relativist camp. I believe in demons. I believe in archons. I think demigods are real. I think vampires are real. I think cryptids are real. I think aliens, in the Carl Jung sense, are aspects of ourselves, maybe a future collective human timeline going back into time, observing our younger selves. I guess that does make me a relativist. But also aliens themselves could be another subset of demons. There could be multiple sets of aliens. And then those aliens are, some groups are demons, some groups are Pleiadians, some groups are future humans, some groups are the Greys, the good Greys, and then the bad Greys, and then the Dracos. I could go on and on and on and on and on. So many factions, so many factions. Having a cupcake for dinner. I'm a bit worried about you 2x sometimes. Naive realism. Reality can be understood using appropriate methods. The structural realism. Reality is described by scientific theory, but its underlying nature is uncertain. Critical realism. Reality captured by broad critical examination. Bounded relativism. Mental constructions of reality, this is very Carl Jungian in a sense, are equal in space and time with boundaries. Cultural, moral, cognitive, I'm going to add linguistic to that as well. And M.A.K. Halliday, I think, would fit into this particular box. Relativism, realities exist as multiple, intangible mental constructions. No reality exists beyond subjects. Funnily enough, there's a CIA study into the human mind, which is the gateway process, which kind of leans towards this. Kind of interesting nonetheless. This is a very interesting graph. Epistemology, how do we create knowledge, or how do we create the study? How do we study what is studied? Fair enough. Meaning exists within an object. An objective reality exists in an object independent of the subject. Constructionism, meaning is constructed from the interplay between subject and object. They are dynamic, they play into each other. And then, of course, subjectivism, meaning exists within the subject itself. Subject imposes meaning on the object. So you see that there's a spectrum. And then the theoretical perspective, what is the philosophical orientation that research guides towards their action or research? Knowledge acquisition as deductive or free value from world view down into meaning. Meaning is derived from the world view deductively. Therefore, X leads to Y and Y leads to Z. Or knowledge is inductive. It is value laden and it is contextual. The context of the knowledge creates the knowledge itself. Whereas deductive tends to be more scientific, the scientific approach. Positivism, natural science methods, as can be applied to the social sciences. Posit truth derived from logical truths. Post-positivism, multiple methods are necessary to identify a valid belief because all methods are imperfect. And you will see this a lot in the occult sciences. You won't see positivism as much compared to like the 1920s in certain fields, but you will see more post-positivism in different regards. And structuralism, the source of meaning comes from formal structure found in language and can apply to all aspects of human culture, much like M.A.K. Halliday, who believed that discourse was created by culture, culture was created by society, society was created by, expressed by elements of text, and then elements of text to take their meaning and value from the creation of language structures, grammar, and syntax. So it gets very micro, from macro to micro. That's M.A.K. linguistics, M.A.K. Halliday. Social constructivism, making of reality. The meaning making of reality is an activity of the individual mind. And interpretivism, natural science methods cannot apply to social science. Interpretations of reality are culturally derived and historically situated. Hermeneutics, meaning hidden of language exists in texts, practices, events, situations beneath apparent ones. You will see hermeneutics a lot in the occult as well. It's quite popular within the Egyptian school of Hermeticism, but beyond the Egyptian school of Hermeticism, this inspired the Western branch of modern Hermeticism as well. But I find that this is quite popular in the Egyptian esoteric fields and also in elements of Kabbalah as well. Phenomenology. Oh, phenomenology. Okay, phenomenology. The essence of human experience is only understood when the researcher separates their own experiences. You could make an argument that Carl Jung fits into aspects of phenomenology. Aspects of it, I'm not saying completely. And you see that through the archetypes. But the archetypes themselves are a form of phenomenology. But you could also make the case that Carl Jung does separate the researcher from their own experiences in the sense that he separates the conscious mind from the deeper subconscious. But within the subconscious, there's a deeper collective human subconscious compared to the likes of Sigmund Freud. Whereas Sigmund Freud, I find, tended to focus on the attachment phenomenon between the mother and the son, and the father and the child as well. And then that itself was the influence of the deeper subconscious. But maybe my understanding of this topic is rudimentary too. I'm still learning and growing. This is why I've titled this Baseline 101 on this stream. I don't know it all. I don't know it all. This is very baseline stuff. The researcher must take the position of those researched or interaction by sharing language and other tools. Critical theory. Research theory should be used to change situations, focusing on power relations, critiques, assumptions, and evolves. Emancipatory. The subjects of social inquiry should be empowered. Advocacy or participatory research. Typically, politics and political agendas need to be accounted for. I very much agree with this. And the school of feminism, that the world is patriarchal and the culture inherits its masculine. Again, I'm not a feminist in this sense. I'm not. But people can have their own feminist and feminist epistemology, ontology, cosmology. It's a valid school of thought, though, nonetheless. But I don't lean towards feminism because I'm not a woman. I'm not in the feminine myself. Post-structuralism, different languages and discourse divide the world and give it meaning. Postmodernism, truth claims are socially constructed to serve interests of particular groups. We will see a lot of this on my channel as well. Aspects of postmodernism, methods are equally distrusted, might not be possible to arrive at any conclusive definition of reality. And I make the argument, at least on my channel, that reality is negotiated, renegotiated, co-negotiated, and renegotiated again according to different epochs. And a lot of this is derived by the different energies and the different cycles. My belief is that Dev Mishra was right. We are living in Kali Yuga. The Kali Yuga has been sped up because of the uniqueness of the 2020 timeline with a certain event. And by altering the biome, they've completely altered the blood human biome with a certain thing. They completely altered the timeline and our experience of the 2020 timeline. So Kali Yuga has been sped up on purpose. And the reason being is that we are in the cycle back towards reawakening, possibly towards Satya Yuga, the golden age, the rise of the golden age into the ascending cycle. I should show that actually now on this stream that I've brought it up. Pragmatism or necessary approaches should be used to understand the research problem. Social Science Research Guide, consisting of ontology, epistemology, and philosophical perspectives. When read from left to right, elements take on a more multi-dimensional nature, from epistemology, objectivism to subjectivism. The elements within each branch are positioned according to their own congruence with elements from other branches. So they do interlock, they do interconnect. So when read from top to bottom or bottom to top, from pragmatism towards the theoretical, elements from one branch align with one another, such as critical realist ontology, constructionist epistemology, and interpretivist philosophical perspective. Subcategories of elements are to be interpreted as positioned under the parent category. So these are the children, if I'm to use a metaphor. These are the children of the parent categories here and here. That's what they're saying. Moon and Blackman 2014. I wonder if they have publications on this. Ontology. The first branch is ontology, the study of being, which is concerned with what actually exists in the world, about which humans can acquire knowledge. Ontology helps researchers recognize how certain they can be about the nature and existence of objects they are researching. For instance, what truth claims can a researcher make about reality? Example, there's the biblical ontology of the Abrahamic faiths. There's the Quranic ontology of the Quran, that the Quran's word is the absolute, and therefore the truth is derived from Allah because Allah wills it, or the truth is derived from Christ because Christ wills it, and he himself is the source of the truth. Or there's the other ontologies of the Hindu and the Shinto faiths and the other strands of Buddhism like Theravada and Vajrayana and the third branch. I always forget the third branch of Buddhism, but Theravada and Mahayana and Vajrayana Buddhism, they all have their own different ontologies, because they're derived also from different places too. To illustrate, realist ontology relates to the existence of a single reality, which can be studied a bit like historical materialism. And atheism, understood and experienced as a truth, a real world exists independent of human experience. Meanwhile, relativist ontology is based on the philosophy that reality is constructed within the human mind and that no one true reality exists. Instead, reality is relative according to how individuals experience it at any given place and time. I'm going to add time to that. Time and place. Okay, they've got that. At any given time and place. And context. Epistemology. The second branch is epistemology, the study of knowledge. Epistemology is concerned with all aspects of the validity, scope, and methods of acquiring knowledge, such as what constitutes knowledge itself, how can knowledge be acquired or produced, how the extent of this transferability can be assessed. Epistemology is important because it influences how researchers frame their research in their attempts to discover knowledge. By looking at the relationship between a subject and an object, we can explore the idea of epistemology and how it influences research design. Objectivist epistemology assumes that reality really exists outside or independently of the individual mind. Objectivist research is useful in providing reliability, consistency of results obtained, and external validity, a bit like science, really. Applicability of the results to other contexts. Constructivist epistemology rejects the idea that objective truth exists and is waiting to be discovered. Instead, truth or meaning arises in and out of our engagement with the realities of our world, a little bit like Carl Jung, a little bit, not completely, but like a little bit. That is, real world does not pre-exist independently of human activity or symbolic language. The value of constructivist research is in generating contextual understandings of a defined topic or problem. Subjectivist epistemology relates to the idea that reality can be expressed in a range of symbol and language systems. Again, this is a bit Carl Jungian. He touches this in Man and Symbols, and is stretched and shaped to fit the purposes of individuals such that people impose meaning on the world and interpret it in a way that would make sense to them. For example, a scuba diver might interpret a shadow in the water according to whether they were alerted to a shark in the area, the shark waiting for a boat, or expecting a change in the weather itself, the clouds influencing the shadow. The value of subjectivist research is in revealing how an individual's experience shapes their perception of the world, and of course, philosophical perspectives. Stemming from ontology, what exists for people to know about, and epistemology, how knowledge is created and what is possible to know, are philosophical perspectives, a system of generalized views of the world, which form beliefs that guide action. Philosophical perspectives are important because when made explicit, they reveal the assumptions that researchers are making about their research, leading to choices that are applied to the purpose, design, and methodology of the methods of the research, as well as to data analysis and interpretation. At the most basic level, the mere choice of what to study in the sciences imposes values on one subject. Are you an empiricist? Do you like numbers? Do you crunch numbers? Are you more of someone who believes that knowledge itself is derived specifically in specific contexts? This is why I say always check your own epistemology and ontology in the study of these subjects, in particular the occult, the mysteries, magic, and the mysteries. And I also have to check my own epistemology and ontology when I study the mysteries, magic, and the cosmos myself, because the cosmos is ever-changing, therefore epistemology and ontology are ever-changing. However, some realities are not negotiable, such as the laws of physics are not actually negotiable, the laws of entropy. But then you get into the realm of quantum physics, and then it becomes a lot more ambiguous, vague and ambiguous. Understanding the philosophical basis of science is critical in ensuring that research outcomes are appropriately and meaningfully interpreted, with an increase of interdisciplinary research and examination of the points of difference and intersection between the philosophical approaches can generate critical reflection and debate about about what we can know, not how we can know. Oh, that's part of it too. What we can know and what we can learn, and how this knowledge can affect the conduct of science and beyond, and the consequent decisions and actions. How does your philosophical standpoint affect your research? I think I'm more of a constructivist and a relativist. However, I do believe that aspects of reality are not negotiable, such as the realms of physics, and that these specific laws, even in the cosmos and beyond the cosmos, in the metaphysical, must be aligned with cosmic and natural law. And that's very much an underpinning core belief that I have. What are your experiences of clashing philosophical perspectives in interdisciplinary research? How did you become aware of them and resolve them? Do you think that researchers need to recognize different philosophies in interdisciplinary research teams? I'm going to have a look at this. I might actually download this journal article. I'm not reading the journal article on the stream today, but I am going to read it for later. That's a very interesting that's a very interesting but a very succinct breakdown of a pretty complex topic. Even for me, I find this topic quite complex. What was I going to look at again? I was going to look at, since I brought it up. Oh, man, my mind. Forest Chad in the house. Good to see you, man. New viewer. I think that's a new viewer, unless he's rebranded. And 2x couldn't breathe last night. Don't want to waste food. Yeah, it's good not to waste food. Oh, man. I was going to look at something else, but I forgot. See how bad my mind and my memory is now? I used to know this stuff like clockwork, but now my mind's just like, No, getting older, I think. Occult, occultism, epistemology, ontology, cosmology. Yeah, cosmology and quantum physics. Stuff that we can all cover on this channel, because it all interconnects. It all interconnects. But my cosmology, the Yugas. That's right. I wanted to look at the Yuga cycles, because people are saying that Kali Yuga will end within 2025 to 2030, depending on who you believe. That we're coming out of the last 432,000 years, or 1,205 years. The Yuga cycles. These are interesting. Now, people think of the Yugas as the worship of a lot of Abrahamics. Think of the Yugas as the worship of Kali the demon, which Kali the demon is a man, by the way. It's not the feminine. The goddess is the feminine in Hinduism. The goddess Kali, Kali Ma Kali, the one that I basically align myself with. To me, she's been much better of a mother than any earthly mother that I've ever had. I'm just trying to find, just bear with me for a moment. I'm just trying to find sources written by Hindus themselves, or the Nepalese themselves. Yeah, that's a much better source. I think it's much better to choose my sources based on how much closer that author is towards that specific ontology and epistemology and that worldview. download that book, look into that book later. Cool. There's a book about the Yugas. I'm going to add that to my shopping list. Cool. All right, sorry about that, guys. I know I'm not being the best streamer right now. I'm not being the best streamer. But let's look at the cycles and what I actually mean when I talk about the Yugas. Keys to the Yugas, or cycles of the ages, and the sub-Yugas in these three Yugas, the Yuga cycle, written by Vamadeva Shastri on the 13th of June 2017, articles on Vedic astrology. The following article is authored by David Frawley, Pandit Vamadeva Shastri Sri Yukteswar, the Guru of Paramhanas. Oh my gosh, I can't say these words. Guru of Paramhamanasa Yogananda in his book Holy Science, Kaivalya Darshana, has provided an excellent model for understanding human history through the four yugas of Hindu thought. So this is Hindu cosmology, which he has explained in a new way that brings much clarity to the system. The purpose of the present article is to suggest an additional enhancement to Yukteswar's Yuga theory, adding a set of sub-yugas or minor yugas to add more detail to it. These additional sub-periods can explain historical changes over centuries that the Yuga model of thousands of years can miss. They also tell us why, though we are no longer in the Kali Yuga, if you follow Bev Mishra, we are definitely not in the Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga, according to him, ended in March 2025. This is why you see a lot of chaos and change now. The evil is unraveling and it's just emboldening itself and showing itself. But we are still in a difficult time that is likely to continue for some decades. First of all, let us take a quick look at Sri Yukteswar's Yuga theory. Yukteswar proposes a 4 Yuga cycle of 12,000 years, with transitional periods called sandhis coming in between. Each sandhi is 10% of the length of the main period and occurs at both its beginning and end. Kali Yuga of 1,000 years has 2 sandhis of 100 years for a total of 1,200 years. Dwapar Yuga has 2,000 years, has 2 sandhis of 200 years for a total of 2,400 years. Treta Yuga of 3,000 years has 2 sandhis of 300 years for a total of 3,600 years. And Satya Yuga of 4,000 years has 2 sandhis of 400 years and a total of 4,800 years, making for a total of 12,000 years for the cycle of the 4 yugas. And if you are to believe the flood theory of the Earth, the last cycle of 12,000 years was the time of the Great Flood, which I attribute also partially to the Mai Taurani story. She washes her hair, she washes away the demons, and she purifies the earth. That's the Lao cosmology. Yukteswar has the Yuga cycles coming in pairs, one set of descending Yugas from Satya to Treta to Dwapar to Kali, which is where we've just left now, is followed by another set of ascending yugas from Kali ascension, Dwapar ascension, Treta ascension, Satya ascension. According to him, the midpoint of the descending and ascending cycles occurred around 500 AD. Funnily enough, that makes me think of, why do I think of Pompeii when I think of 500 AD? I might be wrong, but why do I think of Pompeii as 500 AD? That's pretty interesting. In addition to this scheme of yugas and sandhis, I'm proposing dividing up each yuga itself into 4 sections or sub-yugas: Satya, Treta, Dwapar, Kali, in the same relative proportions. We can divide the 1,000-year Yuga of Kali into 4 Yugas. 400 years of Satya Kali, 300 years of Treta Kali, 200 years of Dwapara Kali, and 100 years of Kali Kali, or the dissension cycle, basically. But Kali is always a dissension cycle anyway. So there's the ascending aspect of the Kali cycle, the golden aspect of the Kali cycle, the bronze or the iron aspect of the Kali, the dissension, and then the absolute dissension of Kali Kali. We would divide up Dwapara Yuga into 2,000 years, 800 years of Swata Dwapara, 600 years of Treta Dwapara, 400 years of Dwapara Dwapara, and 200 years of Kali Dwapara. In this manner, we can bring more specificity to the kind of historical changes that we can expect during the long period of each Yuga. Relative to descending Yugas, I would begin them with the Satya period, as they begin with a period in which they are the greatest light. Relative to the ascending Yugas, I would end them with the Satya period, in which there is the greatest light. Below, I have listed the regular Yugas and their sadis, or the transitional periods, kind of like what we're going through now. We're in a Kali transition period between the AI timeline, the Ahriman timeline, and the non-Ahriman timeline, along with the proposed sub-yugas that occur within each yuga. I'm not going to read all these out, but I see what he's proposing here. I believe this addition to the sub-yugas explains a lot historically. For example, Satya sub-yuga of the descending Kali Yuga, 600 to 200 BCE, was the main period of the religious philosophical development of the ancient world, particularly through the Indians, the Chinese, and the Greeks. When Vedic, Buddhist, Taoist, and Greek philosophies were at the highest, this would agree with it being the Satya, or the spiritual portion of the descending Kali Yuga. The Satya sub-yuga of the ascending Kali Yuga from 12,000 to 1600 AD marked the High Middle Ages, the Renaissance and Reformation, in which there was also a development of knowledge in Europe. This would agree with it being the Satya, or spiritual portion of the ascending Kali Yuga. The descending Dwapara Yuga and its Satya sub-yuga, Treta sub-yuga, in 2100 to 1500 BCE, and Dwapara sub-yuga, 1500 BCE to 1100 BCE, correspond fairly well with the Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms of ancient Egypt. These are the usual periods given by scholars for their main flourishing. After 1100 BCE, the civilization of Egypt declined severely. In this regard, it is important to note that the current Kali sub-yuga of the Dwapara Yuga runs from 1900 to 2100 AD, that's now. Actually, maybe that isn't now. Explains our continued global problems, even though Dwapara proper has already begun, but we're still in that transition period. These problems will probably not be resolved until 2100 AD, when the Kali sub-yuga ends and the Dwapara sub-yuga of Dwapara Yuga begins. Presently, we stand only slightly more than halfway through the Kali sub-yuga of Dwapara Yuga. The question is whether the second half will be as destructive as the first. So good news. That's 3. Yukta Swa taught that we are in Dwapara Yuga needs to be tempered with the fact that we are also in its Kali sub-yuga. This means that some of the negative influence of the Kali Yuga will remain. These are reflected in our current ecological crises. I'm going to say plural. I'm going to pluralize that. And in the problem of religious fundamentalism and terrorism. Oh, man. We must recognize that Dwapara Yuga itself is not a spiritual age like Satya Yuga. It is the age of subtle materialism that brings some development over the gross materialism of Kali Yuga. A bit like now with capitalism, arguably. Late-stage capitalism. But the powers that Dwapara develops, from electricity to nuclear to the mass media, create their challenges as well, along with more dangerous weapons, possibly possibility of a greater civilizational collapse. Like AI, the beginning of Dwapar Yuga can result in wars and disasters greater than Kali Yuga because the energies and weapons are stronger. So bear that in mind. We should additionally note that the cycle of the Yugas does not proceed in a uniform way, but through a series of transformations which can have a destructive side. Often the forces of darkness increase or amass before they are eliminated or cast out. So struggles between powers of light and powers of darkness can heighten even in areas of generally increasing light, such as we can see today, so such as the awakening. People are awakening to the system, but you notice that there's a lot of pushback, in particular with a certain list, like Epstein. That's one example that comes to my mind. That's probably the best example that actually comes to my mind, would be that. That would be the embodiment of this. The 21st century, therefore, is an important transitional period. As Dwapar Yuga moves forward, the shadow of Kali Yuga lingers on along with the immaturity of the new Yuga, as we are halfway through this Kali sub-Yuga that began around 1900. We can expect the next 100 years to present similar challenges to the planet as the 20th century, though with greater technological capacities and dangers. Another level of sub-Yugas. Okay, so now we're going into the decades. The turnings. Some of you might know these as the four turnings. We can add a third level to Yugas or sub-Yugas. For the current sub-Yuga, these would be 1900 to 1920, Dwapar Kali, World War I, and leading into the Great Depression, but not the Great Depression. 1920 to 1960, Dwapar, Kali Dwapar, the Second World War, the Great Depression, the rise of the Soviet Union, the Korean War, and the Cold War continues into the Cuban Missile Crisis, or almost the Cuban Missile Crisis. 1960 to 2020, Dwapar, Kali Treta, Cuban Missile Crisis, Vietnam, the Afghanistan war with the Soviets. Another event that comes to my mind, the Iran-Iraq war of the 80s, the wars in Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, under the Bushes and Obama, and the 2020 as well with the certain the jabbity jab, as well as the 2020 period, 2009, the GFC, the 2021 recession, the Australian bushfires. I could go on and on. 2020 to 2100, Dwapar, Kali, Satya. So basically, the possibility of the AI age, the possibility of the rise of Ariban and his physical presence on the Earth, the rise of the robots, the rise of the transhumanist. But I don't expect that age to last very long. You cannot continue to defy natural cosmic law and expect to last. That's just not going to happen. It's not sustainable. Sure, you might be powerful. Evil might peak. Evil might manifest. But those energies can only last for so long, and then they cancel themselves out anyway. So that's why I actually have a lot of faith, broadly, generally, not just in the Christian Abrahamic sense. I mean broadly also in the Hindu cosmology, Buddhist sense as well. In this scheme, we see that Kali sub-Yuga of Dwapar Yuga was marked by the First World War. Dwapar Kali sub-Yuga was marked by the Second World War. The Treta sub-Yuga has not been marked by another world war yet, but has had the Cold War. Some people make the argument that the Cold War was World War III, and that what we would expect to be World War III would actually be World War IV. That's another argument. We are not beyond further world wars or global calamities. This is already happening in the Middle East, actually. The river Euphrates is going down, 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 and this threatens Egypt, the UAE, parts of modern-day Iran, parts of Israel. There's a lot of global calamities in the Middle East in particular. The centralization of the global politics, media, and economy as Dwapar Yuga is developing may make our society more vulnerable to attack and collapse. 2020, a mark in the change from Dwapar Kali Treta, in which we are now into Dwapar Kali Satya. One should expect more positive events after that time, though one can still not rule out some major restructuring of human civilization and a good deal of suffering along the way. In conclusion, I would urge any who follow Yukthawar's Yuga theory to look into additional possible influence of the sub-Yugas. Our current global difficulties are not a sign that we will remain in Kali Yuga, but that we are in the Kali aspect of Dwapar Yuga. Well, we are, if you believe Dev Shrim Mishra's book, that we are out of Kali Yuga that ended in 2025, March 2025, and then we're in the descended aspect of the ascension cycle. During this dangerous period, we have new energy of the Dwapar Yuga, but have not yet learned the wisdom to use it properly, hence why technological development can never exceed spiritual development. Spiritual development and technological development cannot exceed spiritual development. What is within must be without. What is without is an aspect of what is within. They are not mutually exclusive. That's why I am of the belief that this whole AI business is an expression of Ahriman, that it is an influence of Ahriman, much like Rudolf Steiner says, and I'm jumping to a lot of conclusions now, and that the emergence of AI and transhumanism is one faction trying to outdo all the other factions, and they're saying that this is peak technological progress. This is the only way, but it's blocking spiritual development, which we saw on last week on the 9/11 stream, that ascension only occurs through inner work. It doesn't occur through external work. So yeah. Let's go back to the Yugas. This is by A. Shaw. The Four Yugas in Hinduism by Medium. The four Yugas refer to the cosmic ages that are used in the Vedic Hindu system for measuring universal time. These four ages are known as Satya, Treta, Dvapara. I think it's, I say Dwapar, Dvapara, and Kali. Yugas are cyclical time periods of the different ages. Yugas function in cyclical patterns like the waxing and waning of the moon. Each of the four yugas involves 4 stages of evolution. According to the Hindu scriptures, the current universe is destined to pass through 4 great epochs, each of which is a complete cycle of cosmic creation and destruction. Hindu literature deals with numbers of large enough to be nearly impossible to imagine. Hindus believe the process of creation moves in cycles and that each cycle has 4 great yugas or epochs of time, and because the process of creation is cyclical and never ending, it begins to end and ends to begin. They're not mutually exclusive. Never mutually exclusive here. The Hindu religion is the only one of the world's great faiths dedicated to the idea that the cosmos itself undergoes an immense and indeed innate number of deaths and rebirths. I sort of disagree. I think Buddhism touches on aspects of this as well. I disagree with that statement. It is the only religion in which timescales correspond to those of modern scientific cosmology. Its cycles run from our ordinary day and night to a day and night of the Brahma, 8.64 billion years long, longer than the age of the Earth or the Sun, because the Brahma is beyond anyway, or the Sun, and about half the time since the Big Bang. These are much longer timescales still, by Carl Sagan. A kalpa, or eon, is said to be comprised of 1,000 cycles or 4 yugas, each of a different quality. By one estimate, a single yuga cycle is said to be 4.32 million years, and a kalpa is said to consist of 4.32 billion years. Hence this, Satya Yuga, 432,000 years, Treta Yuga, 432,000 years, the Vapur Yuga, 432,000 years. But notice that there's a 2 and a 3 and a 4 exponential there. Kali Yuga, 432,000 years of time. Hindu tradition holds that 3 of these great ages of this current universe have already passed away, and we are now living in the 4th one, the Kali Yuga. It is hard to believe, hard to contemplate the meaning of the vast quantities expressed by the Hindu time scheme. So vast are the numbers there, because I don't even think, okay, I'm going to add a note to this. It is my belief, and I'm not a Hindu, by the way, but this is my belief that your higher self observes the yugas. It is not your mind that observes the yugas. Your mind observes an aspect of the yuga within the physical timeline, sure, but the observation of that long of a period of time is actually observed by aspects of your collective soul, the collective human soul, and also the collective soul that is Dennis or 2X or Chad or whomever. So there are different theories about the symbolic meaning of these measurements of time. All right. This is very detailed. I'm going to have to cover this on another stream. I've gone on for a bit long. I'll cover this on another stream. I'm just going to put this in my Discord, and I'll cover this at another time. Yeah, I'm going to put this. I have a symposium Discord, by the way. My symposium Discord is launched. It is active. If you wish to be invited, please hit me up on Discord itself. I'm going to add my Discord tag. If anyone uses Discord, you can get invited into the symposium. That's my Discord tag there, Deno8771. That is Deno, D-E-N-N-O 8771. Hit me up in Discord for an invite. Please, no trolling. I don't accept trolling or doxing. But I'm going to have to read that at another time, because that's quite detailed, and it also fits into what I really want to get into myself. But that concludes the stream for now. I will be back with another stream as well. I am going to be back for another stream today. I just want to get something to eat, something to drink. I'll come back in about 30 minutes to 1 hour, and might do a reaction to different spirits and ghosts and other entities with the Bizarre Bub stream in the World of Woo Woo section of the show, and I'll call that the stream. Humanus Invictus, the human spirit is not conquered. Ignore the armies of Ahriman and Ishtar and Baal Haman. We don't like Baal Haman here. We don't like Ishtar here. And always use your own discernment. And I always encourage you to use your own discernment within your own bloodline. It exists for a reason. You have that bloodline for a reason. Those instincts and that collective soul of that bloodline exists for a reason. Trust your bloodline and your priya. and I'll be back with future streams. Bye for now. Humanus Invictus.